Hi everyone, and welcome to the Alibaba Cloud Asia Forward Startup Day, organized by Alibaba Cloud. This event is designed to be a full day of interactive activity and dialogue with Asia's leading VCs, Southeast Asian startups of all stages, and notable Chinese startups to discuss the opportunities in the region's hottest sectors. And during the panels today, the guest speakers will be sharing their experiences and learnings from the past decade of rapid growth and development in Asia, particularly addressing the similarities and differences between the business and innovation context of Southeast Asia as well as China. We've actually also collected some questions from the audience, which our speakers will answer at the end of each panel, so stay tuned for that. And right now we have the AI panel titled Navigating Asia's Roadmap for AI. Let me introduce our speakers for today. We have Dr. Jeffrey Chi, Vice Chairman of Asia at Vickers Venture Partners. And we have Logan Xie, Senior Consultant at Quandashi. And to introduce myself, I'm Suyen from the KR Asia team, and I'll be the moderator for this panel. So a warm welcome to both our speakers and the audience, and thank you so much for joining us today. Without further ado, let's get into it. So to our speakers, could you please first introduce yourselves and your companies to our audience? Maybe we can start with Jeffrey.
Sure, thanks, Suyen, and happy to be here. So I'm one of the founding partners and vice chairman of Vickers Venture Partners. We are a global deep tech firm. We invest in things like healthcare, AI, big data, new materials. We have a global footprint. We invest around the world. I'm based here in Shanghai, but I also oversee our investments in Southeast Asia.
Awesome, thank you for that. And Logan, over to you.
Sure, happy to be here. Very nice to meet the Southeast Asia audience. And Quandashi is a company that focuses on IP protection, transaction, and patent granting, focusing on the AI-enabled technology in terms of protect all clients' IP and patent.
Good to know. Thank you so much. And perhaps to start off the discussion proper, maybe we should get down to basics. So AI has been a constant topic in the global tech world for a long time now, I guess partially because the technology behind it is so flexible and it can be applied to many different industries. So how have you seen AI transform industries in China, and where do you foresee it going? Maybe this time we can start with Logan.
Sure. Well, in China, we see the AI technology becomes more and more popular. Actually, it's more popular than ever. Nowadays, we see AI technology implementation across all industries, including fintech, genetics, bioinformation, and recently we see there's business intelligence, and there's a higher level service called enterprise level intelligence service. So I would say, going from now to next 3 to 5 years, we can anticipate AI technology be more adaptive by all industries and companies, and in providing services and solutions to its client users in specific field.
All right, so we can anticipate AI to really be a mainstay sort of digital enabler in the next few years. Dr. Chi, what about you?
It's interesting. AI, has been around for decades, right? So the academic field of AI has always been on the imagination of scientists to try and push this field forward. And it is only in recent years that it has caught on. In recent years, maybe the last 5 years or so. I think the reason for that primarily is because of the ability and the computation speed and computation power and computation costs, and that has in a way enabled something that was previously not possible to do, and we've seen huge growth in that industry. So here in China specifically, what has happened is that the Chinese government has has declared an overall ambition to be the AI superpower within a relatively short period of time. And this is one of the unique things about the startup world or the business world in general in China, which is when government says, people see an opportunity, and a lot of people jump on the bandwagon to push things forward. So we are seeing a lot of development in all areas of AI, and we can talk a little bit about the sort of how broad we are seeing applications. But as Logan said, it's a platform. Some people say that AI is the new internet, and it's going to affect the way everyone goes around their business. So it is very horizontal and a platform play that you can no longer. AI used to be very specialized, and I think the applications that we are seeing now are very, very broad.
Understand. I think you said it exactly as it is. It's becoming more generalistic. We'll see it becoming less specific and more perhaps even consumer friendly, if I may say. So moving on, we've also seen many startups say that that they are AI driven, and that it's a well-used term in digital transformation. To you, what is a cornerstone of a sophisticated AI driven company? What will make an AI company stand out? Maybe Dr. Chi, you can start.
Sure. This is an area that's quite, maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago, when almost everyone was saying that they were AI driven because it was a cool thing to say, and it was something that allowed perception wise for them to stand out as to there's something real to or something different to invest behind. So I think one of the key things is really, how does a firm use AI in their normal course of the business? Is it used to reduce costs? Is it used to make things more efficient? You're beginning to see companies that are, I think Logan pointed out, business analytics is becoming more and more AI driven because systems, the availability of data now gives AI the ability to see things a lot more quickly and a lot more clearly than a person would be to. So it does make a lot of sense. And but for us, if we're looking at investing in an AI company, then we're kind of looking for things that push the field of AI a little bit further, right? Because we are seeing a lot of companies that uses AI as applications and just optimizing their business. Fundamentally, they have their business in something else, right? So but what is to us, what pushes the field of AI, what makes it easier for people to use? So for example, we have a company that is a platform for visual-based AI. And one of the problems in the visual-based AI space is, if I were a company and I wanted to apply AI across a series of images in what I do, I need to figure out how to train the system to go through a lot of images just to do that. And without hiring AI people and serious AI people, that is becoming very, very challenging to do. Chooch, which is a US-based company, basically simplifies that, right? So they use interfaces that anyone could basically log on to and to be able to upload their own images, provide their own training, and when there is enough data in the system, then the AI engine can adapt to whatever the customer needs them to do without having the need to hire AI staff. So and some of the other examples in this space are in the chip space, because AI is highly computational heavy. It's consuming a lot of energy. So how do we make that computation more efficient? Because the computation methodologies for AI are different from what we do for normal processes. So things like that, things that move the industry forward a little bit, rather than people just picking up and use as an application.
Understand. Really sort of like pushing the envelope and broadening the space in that sense. Logan, from a AI-driven company yourself, what do you think?
Right. Well, 100% agree with Dr. Chi on the trend of the AI technologies development in recent years. A few years back, it's just pretty much a cool thing, a cool label that most company, it's a high-tech company, they want to define itself as AI company. But really, what makes a company to stand out in the market is the business value the company can create, and what it choose to provide to its client, or collect from user, and provide a solution or services to its customer. So it's really not the technology itself. I would say that AI technology is still at its early stage of development, because we all know that the best AI, artificial intelligence, is human brain, but we're still far from there, right? And we are doing many research from all aspects to create maybe 20% or maybe 30%, function that human brains can select, can screen, and can analyze in our daily life. From business standpoint, a lot of the business are providing, like I said, enterprise level intelligence service, and collecting data, big data, and process them and into strategy, or anticipate what competitors would do, and make or adjust the game plan accordingly. We see that product and services coming out today, which is not a surprise, but still, I would think it's really how would the company define itself in the market, and understand the market, understand its their clients, understand what business value using AI technology can provide to its client. That makes the true AI company to stand out.
Got it. So for the company to have a very clear, strong vision of itself within the market, and knowing how to execute that properly. I think that makes a lot of sense. Dr. Chi, earlier you mentioned that in China the government has provided quite strong support and I guess mandate for the development of AI. And I was just thinking, Southeast Asia has, of course, aspirations to continuously develop technology and innovation. And China has always been there, amongst other global mature markets for us to look and learn from. And what are some changes in China's infrastructure or policies that enabled the breakthroughs in AI capabilities and applications that maybe Southeast Asia could take reference to?
The Chinese story is relatively unique, and if you look back at recent history, it goes beyond just AI, but a lot of investment decisions evolve around policies. So they're policy driven, and the policies often have a very high level sort of goal, right? So government has set the tone that they want to be an AI superpower, and then policies start evolving around that statement to say, hey, what can we do in the AI space? What are we going to encourage? It needs to be across the board, including attracting talent, including nurturing talent, including attracting companies, and so on, right? And then down to state-owned companies actually getting involved in developing things, and then the investment community investing around startups. Now that happened maybe 4 or 5 years ago in the AI space. It's happening again in the sort of the current flavor is the decarbonization space with the zero carbon neutral targets that China has set for 2060 and peak carbon in 2030. Again, those are high level statements. Policies are evolving around that and all that. So it's fairly unique that the ecosystem evolves around something the central government may put out as a mission, as a goal. I think that uniqueness comes a lot also from a lot of the economy is contributed through state-owned enterprises as opposed to private sector. And then the governments also, the local governments and municipalities are putting in investments to follow the policy, because they see it as adhering to policy and that the local government's KPIs are met that tie into an overall goal that the government has set. Now, I think Southeast Asia, first of all, consists of 10 different countries, right? So that kind of makes it a little bit more challenging. And each country is set up a little differently. But if I say there was a lesson, it would be in a way, one of the benefits that China has in this regard is that it's still very, very government driven. And when government says something, the state-owned companies follow, the local governments follow, and create an ecosystem around that. So if that can be emulated, it would mean maybe it's harder for government itself in some of these Southeast Asian countries, but public-private partnerships could perhaps be a motivation, or not even partnerships in terms of setting up a business, but in terms of a task force being set up to drive a certain industry in a certain direction.
Understood. I definitely see where you're coming from. I think I guess maybe putting my 2 cents in, we have definitely seen some development in that direction. I think in Southeast Asia, across Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia. I think the governments are also taking note of which are the industries each country can push forward. So I think that's probably something exciting to look out for. Awesome. Let's move on. And this time it's a question more for Logan. So of course, there are some challenges in the AI industries where we see companies with very high valuations, yet they struggle to turn a profit and eventually make losses. What are your thoughts on this situation? Maybe you could share some observation, insight, or advice on how to avoid this situation.
Well, like I said, before, I think AI is not just a cool thing for company to have the label and to raise fund, and you have to believe it. Believe the power of the computing, and how to utilize implementing big data and the AI technology into your services to your client. I think still it has to be the business value that the company can create to a client, and that's the key. And you need to find the true application and the true clients, and you need to find your users, true users, and then expand. For example, our company is the company providing the ultimate solution for high-tech companies, across all industries, pretty much, in terms of protecting IP. Well, when we see IP protection, it's not just a patent grant, it's not just a lawsuit or settlement or negotiation with its competitors. We're talking about pretty much everything involved in IP before, I think, the law firms that we use, well, back in 5 to 10 years, are just simply taking those, petitions, or taking those inquiries from clients, from, companies, and merely do, their job to find patents and to get patent application granted. But now what do we do is, we learn our clients from its patent application filed and it's granted, and we do patent mining, and so we understand technology, we understand the industry much better than our competitors, and in that way, so we know our clients better than our competitors. That's where when we kick in, we don't see, patent granting itself as a service. We provided the full service to our client. For example, when we tell a client what patent you should file and what application you file, we even give advice to executive level of management of the company. Then we provide services to in what area you should focus on your technology development, and that's really high level. It's high level decision from a company. It's not just sitting in our own offices and taking orders from clients. So I think AI technology, when we use that in our own services, it changed mentality of the whole company, from like traditional services that most of law firms and most of those service provider provide to their clients back in 3 years. I think that's a big change, that when we implemented AI technology in our own company, that's the difference and the change I can tell. Yeah.
Got it. So it's really more about finding and refining the business value that the company brings via AI or with AI, as opposed to just using it as a marketing term or just something to purely attract eyeballs and investors. Awesome. For Dr. Shi yourself, as an investor, what sort of metrics do you have, or do you look at when it comes to investing in AI companies? And have they shifted over the years, given the lackluster financial performance of AI companies? And with that, what kind of advice would you give to growing Southeast Asian AI companies when it comes to the challenges of commercialization?
There are a few parts of that question. Let me try and dissect it a little bit. So the first thing is, what do we look for when we invest in companies? What metrics do we use? So basically, Vickers, as a deep tech firm, we invest in what we call breakthrough technologies that solve big problems. And the thing about solving big problems is you can see on my background screen behind Funding a Better World, is that it does move humanity forward a little bit, but we are not an impact fund. Fundamentally, when you do solve big problems, you are tapping into a huge demand. So basically, what we're indirectly saying is we don't like to take too much risk on the demand side. If we invest in a company that builds a technology, we are pretty certain that there will be a market for their services or their offering or the product that they have to offer. Now, so from that perspective, and this may be a good add-on to the question you asked Logan a little earlier about sort of revenues and lackluster financial performance. So long as the technology is developing along the right path, that's a good thing. And companies should be valued in the right direction, with which is you see increasing valuations, as long as there are positive developments along this. So for instance, in the biotech world, you have and we have a few companies in the portfolio that are in the stage. You see larger and larger valuations as the company develops into their phase 1 clinical trials, phase 2 clinical trials. As they get closer and closer to the market, the valuation sees an uptick. They see an uptick in valuations as they continue to grow. But at the same time, because the drug isn't on the market yet, there is no revenue. So financially, they haven't been performing. Some AI companies we see fit into that position where the technology is developing well, but the monetization hasn't really kicked in yet. But if fundamentally you believe that there is limited demand risk once the product is built, and as long as the product is continued to develop, then that should be fine. So that's kind of where we sit on what we look for, how we think about valuations, and so on.
Got it. So again, I'm really focusing on just pushing the technology itself, right? And I guess also, like, as Logan mentioned, the business value lies very heavily in the technology, and as long as there are positive movements and developments towards that, that should be the focus of the company. Got it.
And also not to belittle, right? Even though it's not the key motivation for us, we are venture capitalists with capitalists being the key word there, which is we make money for our investors. But by solving big problems, we are pushing humanity forward in a certain way.
Definitely, I think we can all understand the power of technology in today's world. That's definitely not to be taken lightly. So let's talk a little bit more about protecting intellectual property. Logan, maybe you could share more about the trends you're seeing in patents in recent years. Is there a growing emphasis on protecting intellectual property in China? And what do you think of IP protection when it comes to AI algorithms, big data, and innovation? Does that make innovation less accessible?
Right. I would say no. I would say it's actually making those innovation, the cutting edge technology, AI technology, or big data related computing technology more accessible than before. And for those AI companies, for example, I think Tesla has done a great job, in open source or its patent portfolio to enhance the whole industry and have more to come into the driverless car industry, right? So I think the AI company, if we want, if ultimate goal is not just to make a success of e-commerce, but to lead the bigger success of the mankind, right? So we can always open that, but before you open source your patent portfolio, you still need to have them to open, right? So that's that. I'm not sure if I answered your question. In terms of the IP protection in China, I think the trend is the companies are more focusing on the qualities instead of qualities. We see many companies, not just small companies. So big companies, spend a huge amount of money investing in patent, but don't know how to use it. Well, one company can have 10,000 or 100,000 patent, but it's just sitting there and waiting for them to expire, but don't know how to use them. And when they get sued by competitors, they have to dig deep to find if they have some patent can counter claims or counter lawsuit. That's time wasting and money wasting. So after like 10 years, I think I would say 10 to 20 years, development of IP protection in China, you can see from those, big companies, global companies, start to realize that patents is not just is this, a KPI, but it's also great assets to protect a company. So when they file patent applications, they are more careful, and when they argue with examiners, they are more careful and diligent, to enhance the IP protection, but not just consider that as a KPI to finish. I think that would be a trend, going forward in the next 3 to 5 years, and also for those startup companies. A lot of startup companies, when they go to like a VC, or raise funds, and investors start to ask questions. So if you're a technology company, so
Got it. So there's just a general movement towards really understanding how to use patents better to, of course, the company's benefit, and the real value of holding on to these patents. Dr. Chi, I guess from your perspective, will a startup with a patent, be more attractive for investments?
Before I answer that question, I'm quite excited that we're actually having this conversation, because 10 years ago, the topic of intellectual property protection in China is kind of a very challenging conversation to have. 10 years on today, I think the market recognizes that intellectual property protection is important, and it actually does exist, right? So I think that's very, very important for the business environment, especially in the field of technology, as companies from abroad come into this market. But I absolutely agree with Logan that I don't see patents as limiting innovation. I think it on the contrary encourages innovations. Patent holders are more knowing that their technology is protected, are more willing to share. There's an avenue for licensing. Things are out in the public a little bit more. So there is an ability to push things forward. The biggest challenge for innovation and pushing the envelope in terms of innovation in the AI space today, in my view, is this unhealthy relationship between the US and China. Even though there are patents, parties are unwilling to share and limit access to Chinese companies for US technologies, and vice versa, right? So as a result, then the what the industry is calling a technology bifurcation, that technologies will evolve in a certain way to kind of meet Chinese customer demands, and the US customers' demands may be slightly different. And so you'll see a bifurcation, and perhaps the development of more than one standard in certain things, and that I think is a bigger risk. Specific to your question, does a patent add value? I think it certainly does, and not only the protection is one aspect. The other aspect is this recognition that if a company is granted a certain patent, it is recognized as unique. So that in a way is a validation that they have a unique advantage over other players, and it also means that they have a first mover as well. So I think certainly patents do benefit. There is a caution though that companies should not apply for patents for the sake of applying for patents, and the quality, as Logan pointed out, the quality of a patent is important, and you could have a wide portfolio of useless patents. That's also so I guess the more detailed the caveat to your question, it really depends on what the patent portfolio looks like.
Got it. Understood. I think that is definitely something to think about, right? I think that also goes back to what Logan mentioned earlier as to how do you make use of the patents and how do you, I guess, create value around it, around that uniqueness that the company has, I guess, set up. All right, thank you both for the insightful sharing. We'll move on to a quick Q&A and take a look at some of the questions that our audience members had sent in. So first question for Logan from Liberty Technology. How far can we go ethically when we collect user data to build models? Maybe you can share a bit of your own observations or opinions on user data protection, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's well written in Data Protection Act. Well, it's you know, one user, you not only when you collect, you know, data, you not only need to get permission from users, but also you need to specify and justify your purpose and motive to collect such data, and also specify how to use the data, and then, you know, how to you know storage those data, and well, data is in companies, you know, possession. What's the mechanism to protect those data? So I think that's pretty much, you know, well written in you know, Data Protection Act. But one thing I want to add in to answer this question is I think still the company, we see a lot of companies just collecting data for many purposes, or they want to use those, you know, those data to provide, you know, services to client, which they did not. So we typically see that as, you know, over collection of user data. It's not you know, specified in current Data Protection Act, but still we see a lot of, you know, recently a lot of dispute, you know, between users and companies who collecting you know, user data. I think that's something that we should be careful about, and try to you know, collect and use those data to meet and provide services and, you know, solutions if your client is a company, you know, to meet not only the Data Protection Act standard, but also your client's expectation.
All right, understood. I think this is kind of interesting and maybe a little bit of a hot topic right now, like users' data protection, getting consent from your users, and of course users wondering where the data is going to be used, who's collecting, who's storing it, and all that kind of stuff. I think it's definitely interesting to hear your perspective on it. And I guess a little bit of an add-on from Jeffrey from Obabu Mashai. As an investor, you know, what are your thoughts on ethical AI? And is ethical AI sort of developing as something that is seen as lucrative for investors?
So the debate has always been, what do you use AI for, right? And AI can be used for good. It could also be used for not so good, right? So you know, from my perspective, you know, and again, going to the motto we have on my background, Funding a Better World, I think it is important that investors such as ourselves, who have a say into which technologies eventually come to market, because we back those technologies, there is a responsibility to back the right technologies, right? So you know, put money behind the technologies that matter, and that make a difference, rather than put technologies behind that fulfill certain selfish purposes.
Understood. So I mean, of course, it's always looking at the bigger picture, I guess. And you know, I guess investors will always come in with a balanced view in that sense. And for both speakers from Avatar, Can smaller companies use AI, and how can they get started on their journey? And I guess, are there any tips on setting the right expectations for the implementation of AI? Maybe Dr. Chi, you'd like to take this one first.
Sure. I mentioned one of our companies a little earlier, a company called Chooch, and they do exactly that, right? So they allow companies who don't necessarily have AI teams to be able to build things a little easier. And then I can only imagine that companies are beginning to, other companies in the same space are beginning to think about offering AI in different ways, right? So we have a Malaysian company called Entomo, which stands for Enterprise for Tomorrow, that basically does business analytics. We have a investment in San Francisco called Atomwise that does AI for drug discovery. And they all service very, very small businesses, small medium-sized businesses to help them in their AI journey. So the answer is yes. You don't necessarily need to build it yourself. There are companies that have building blocks that allows you to embark on your journey.
Awesome. That's really good to hear. I think that's I guess in a way that's an interesting model as well, and we see more of these sort of like an AI-driven enterprise services. And Logan, what about you?
Oh, 100% agree. I have nothing to add on Dr. Chi's comment.
Awesome. All right. And I guess just maybe one last question for the both of you from Poundit. How do you see AI impacting the way we do things in the next 3 years? I know both of you sort of talked a little bit about how AI will be more widespread, and it will sort of like be the next internet in the next in the years to come. Maybe you could touch a little bit more on that. Logan, maybe you can start first.
Well, that's a broad topic. I think people are imagining the life with more advanced AI technology implementing of daily lives for a long time, and I don't know. Because of the COVID issues, I haven't traveled around. But in China, it's the life becomes more and more convenient. So you don't go out to buy stuff. You don't need to go out to buy stuff. You don't need to go grocery. And I'm not talking about the delivery business. I'm really talking about like if you buy some toothpaste, right? And some advertisement will push up, to you, so you get some other stuff that you may in need of. So it's very convenient right now. And I'm sitting right here in the office, and I see Travis' car, just pass me quickly. So I think AI technology has changed our daily life, significantly. And going forward, I'm really expecting the AI technology can enable companies, not just consumers. If the companies can use AI technology to make their strategy and in anticipation of its competitors, plan, and sort of we can make adjustment quickly and increase efficiency of the overall and productivities of the company. I think that will be the goal of the AI technology, including me, to achieve.
Got it. And Dr. Chi, yourself?
Yeah, I think AI is already very pervasive, and and occurs in many things that we might not even think about, right? So the fact that you see an image on me with a background, with a virtual background, is a piece of AI software that is able to figure out what's me, the person, versus what's in the background, and basically replace the background with the screen. So it's you call you call a call center, right? And you're able to interact with a robot that is able to direct you in the right way and uses voice recognition to figure out what you're trying to ask for, and all that. That's AI. So it's already here. And I think it's only about to get better. Oh, the other one I can think of is, and it must have happened to a lot of people in the audience. You're talking to a friend, and then you go onto your phone, and hey, why am I getting an ad for something that I just spoke about, right? Because your phone's listening to you, right? So it's already there. It's actually kind of scary, but yeah, it will be more and more pervasive in everything that we do.
And that's all the time we have for today's AI panel. Thank you once again to our speakers, Dr. Chi and Logan, for joining us today, and to our audience for taking the time out to tune in. I hope you found this session informative and meaningful, and we hope you stick around for the rest of the day's activities. If not, we hope to see you again soon. Bye.